Hello and welcome to the second game in the best of Vishy Anand chess series, and in this video let's have a look at another game from the same tournament, the youth versus veterans tournament held in Cairns, where Anand is taking on another chess legend, Boris Spassky. So now let's have a look into the game. This time around Anand is playing with the white pieces and Spassky is playing with black pieces. So playing with white, Anand opens with the e4 and e5 replies Spassky, and knight to f3, and then knight to c6, bishop to b5 and a6, bishop to a4, knight to f6, and Anand castles. Now bishop to e7, rook to e1 and b5, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to b3 and d6, c3, and Spassky castles, h3 and knight to b8. The bread defense from the Rylopus is on the board now, and this has been a main weapon for Spassky against the Rylopus for decades. So Anand replies here with d4 and knight b to d7, c4, further advancing his pawns, and c6 by Spassky. Now a3, b takes c4 pawn and bishop takes the c4 pawn, and now d5. It's a good move by Spassky, controlling the center. Now e takes d5 and c takes d5. Now bishop retreats to the a2 square, and then e4, attacking the knight. Now knight goes to e5. Now bishop to b7 and knight to c3, developing the knight on b1. Now knight to b6, f3. Anand is trying to win a pawn, and a rook to c8. Now bishop to b3. Now bishop to a8. Now bishop to g5, further advancing his pieces. A rook to c7. Spassky also planning an attack. Now rook to c1, knight f to d7, attacking the bishop on g5. Now bishop goes to f4, and then bishop to g5, and Anand goes for bishop into g5. If Anand played knight into d7, then bishop into f4, knight into b6, bishop into c1, knight into a8, bishop into b2, or even rook into c3, b into c3. This would have been good for white. So after bishop into g5, Spassky replies with queen into g5 and f into e4, d into e4, and queen to g4. Anand is trying to trade the queens. Now queen takes g4 and knight takes g4, knight into g4 and g6. Here g6 is not considered a good move. It would have been better if Spassky would have played king to h8 and say knight to e5, and f5 would have been a better line for black. So Anand plays knight to f2, targeting the e4 pawn. Now Anand wins the pawn. Now rook to e8 won't save the pawn, and Anand plays d5, king to g7, knight f into e4. Anand wins pawn here, and knight into d5 and knight to d6, attacking the rook on e8. Now Spassky plays rook into e1, check, rook into e1, and knight on d5 to f6, and then rook to e7, launching an attack. Now rook to c6, attacking the knight on d6. So Anand goes for rook into f7 check. Now king to h6, knight to c4, defending the knight, and now rook to e6. Now king to f2, now king to g5, both the players bringing the kings into the game. Now bishop to c2 and bishop to c6, and now knight to d2 and h5, knight to b3 and knight to e5. So now rook to a7, attacking the a6 pawn. Now Spassky goes knight e to g4. This might seem a blunder, but it is not a blunder. It's a wonderful move by Spassky. Let's see how he's winning back the material back. So in reply to knight e to g4 check, Anand replies with and goes for h into g4, winning the knight. Now he plays knight into g4 check again. With the knight he gives a check, Spassky gives a check, so king to f1. So here Spassky goes for knight to e3 check. See how beautifully Spassky wins the piece back. Here Spassky will win the bishop on c2. So here king plays g1, and then black wins the material, knight into c2, and then rook into a6, bishop to d7, and now rook into e6. But here rook into e6 is a mistake. The better move here was like rook to a5, and then rook to d5, and then rook to d2 line. This would have been better. But here Anand plays rook into e6, and bishop takes e6, bishop into e6, and knight to c5, attacking the bishop on e6. Now bishop goes to c4 and a4. Anand is promoting his pass pawn on the a file. That a file is posing a real threat. And now Spassky plays king to f4, which is not a good move here. So a5, further promoting the pawn, and now knight to b4. Spassky is trying to stop the advancement of pawn on a file. Now b3, attacking the bishop. Now bishop goes to f7, and now knight to d3. This is a wonderful move by Anand. It's a check, knight to d3 check. He's giving away his knight with a check to further promote the a5 pawn. So Spassky goes for knight into d3, and here Anand plays a6 and bishop to e8. He's trying everything that he can to stop the advancement of a pawn. So here Anand plays knight to d5 check. So it was in this position that Spassky resigned the game, because white pawn cannot be stopped from advancing. So it was a wonderful combination by Anand to win the game. So let's see in reply if Spassky plays king to e5, then knight to c7. After that Anand can win the game easily. So it was a wonderful game, and hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Thank you.